How you guys doing?
Good.
All right, my name is Paul Shurtleff. I come from Springville, Utah. And today I'm going to do a little Biot CDC wing Dunn. Has CDL tails, Coq de Leon, and then it has a goose Biot body, and then it has CDC thorax with the legs, and then it has medallion sheeting with the wings. So I'm going to tie that today on a Moonlit ML052. This is a 16. And for the thread, I'm going to be using a nano silk, an 18-aught in beige. And I'm going to start at about the 3/4 spot and then work back. Now for the tail, I'm going to, like I said, I was going to use the CDL, and this is it here. And I'm going to stand these fibers up 90 degrees from the stem, and what that does is align the tips. And I'm only going to use about six fibers or so. And then I'm going to measure for length, and I want it to be at least the hook length long. If they're a little bit longer, it's fine too. I've come over with a couple of turns, and then I'm just going to take my fingernail and run it up underneath the hook and push up on those fibers, and what that does is it splays those fibers out. And then I'm going to come around underneath to lock in that splay. And then I'm going to remove that at the same point where I started, and then just tidy that up. Now for the body, I'm going to be using Semperfly's goose Biot, and these are in brown. I'm just going to take a single fiber and then wet it down. I usually put them in my mouth to wet them. You got to moisten them up a little bit, otherwise they're kind of brittle, especially the dyed ones. And if you don't moisten them up a little bit, they're not going to want to cooperate with you as well. Now I tied that in with the notch facing forward, and I did that because I want the ridges on this fly. The leading edge, which is this side here, opposite the notch, is the side that's going to give you the ridges. This side is going to give you a smooth when you're wrapping it. So if you tie it in, how I've tied it in, if I just wrap this forward, you'll see the ridges. See the ridges? Now, just to demonstrate, I'm gonna take that off and show you what it does the other way with the smooth body. So this is a notch towards the back. So to get the smooth body, you would tie it in notch to the back. And that'll give you a smooth body without the ridges. Now, because I already have that tied in, I'm just going to finish the body and keep it smooth body.
With a smooth body, but you still got the...
Yeah, you still have the segmentation, but it's a smooth body. I'm just going to clean that up a little bit. Now, for the wing, I like to use this medallion sheeting, and it comes in strips. I'm just going to cut a strip off. So it comes in strips like this, and I'm just going to cut a strip about as wide as the hook gap. So then I've cut a strip off for the wing. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that strip and I'm going to pinch it in the middle and then give it a half twist. And then unwind it. And what that did was create a tie-in spot for me.
Just twisted?
I just gave it a single twist or a half twist. I just dropped it, so I'm going to start over again. I don't know where it went. So I'm going to start over again, another strip. So once again, this strip, I'm just going to pinch it right in the middle, and then I'm going to come around and then just put a twist in it, a single twist, like that, and then I'm going to straighten it back out, like that. So I got a tie-in spot, an easy tie-in spot. And then I'm just going to come over the top, over my tie-in, that spot that I created. I'm going to do an X pattern, like you would be tying in eyes. I'm just coming over with figure 8 turns. And then I'm going to pull these wings up and kind of back, and then I'm going to put a few turns up in front and then a few turns in back. And those are my wings. Now for the thorax, I'm going to be using the Petitjean Magic Tool clip set and 2 different colors of CDC. So for the CDC, I'm going to be using is this slate gray and this rusty Dunn. So I've got one. This is the rusty Dunn, and I'm going to set that on in my clip, and then the slate gray goes on top of that. So I've got both the feathers. So I've got both the feathers together, and I'm holding them by the base of the stem. And then I'm just going to put them in my clip like this, down in the clip. Can you guys see that okay? I'm having a hard time judging where to hold this at. Is that out of frame?
Yeah, just right in front of the fly.
Like that? Okay.
Just by the eye.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got both the CDC feathers in the clip, and then I'm going to take this this clip and then come over the top and collect all the fibers. So I've got them in this clip now. And now what I'm going to do is remove the stems. One straight cut. And now what I'm going to do is split the thread. I'm just going to set that aside for a second while I can split the thread. And what I'm going to do is counterclockwise spin, and then I'm just going to come over with my thumb and fingernail and help flatten that thread out while it's still spinning. Now I'm going to split the thread with my bodkin. I got my finger in the split thread, and then I'm just going to introduce those feathers, the CDC feathers. Just like that, and I'm pinching the thread, and then I'm going to give the thread a clockwise spin while just pinching the thread. And then just release. And then I'm going to pull some more thread out of the bobbin, and then I'm going to take my thumb and nail down at the base of the bobbin and run up, and that'll help spin the thread. And then I'm keeping tension on that, and I'm keeping pinching. And then I'm going to run my bobbin up and then give it a 90-degree turn, and that'll keep it from unraveling, unspinning. Now before I wrap this on, I'm going to take my thumb and finger, the first bit of this, and I'm going to just spin that on the thread. And what I'm doing is creating basically a dubbing noodle of CDC for the back end of the thorax. And then I'm just going to wrap that on. And a couple turns in back, and then one up front. And then I'm just going to kind of go back and forth between the front and the back. Once in back, once in front, once in back, once in front. And then I'm going to bring everything up and back. And up and back again to expose the hook eye. And then I'm going to do a whip finish. I don't use a whip finisher, I do it by hand. So that's 4 turns. And then I'm going to do 2. And then you can remove the thread. Now what I'm going to do is kind of rotate this a little bit, and I'm going to hold the wings, and I'm going to take my thumb and finger and kind of help those fibers come out to the side, because the idea behind the CDC is to create legs for a mayfly. So I'm kind of pinching the legs out to the side like this. Now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to clip it flat on the bottom. And then any wild or long fibers, you can either pinch them off or clip them off. Now with the wing, the mayfly wings have kind of like a D shape. So I'm going to even those up and pinch them together. I'm going to kind of eyeball it for length. You want it to be about the body length, which is about right there. And I'm just going to come straight across with a straight cut. And then I'm going to come up and give it a little bit of an upwards cut. And then I'm going to round the back. To give it that D shape. That's my winged CDC Biot done. Questions?
So that color of body, what kind of mayfly would you be trying to emulate?
This mayfly? A brown dun. Yeah. Brown dun. Any of the mayflies, they range in a whole bunch of different colors, so you can tie this in a whole bunch of different colors. I just happen to be using the brown, but an olive body with this pattern exactly in an olive is a great bluing olive. You can tie them in yellow for PMD or any number of mayflies. This is just a generic pattern, but you tie it in different colors and sizes to match hatches.
Hey, two questions. What about your that Semperfly thread? Do you ever have a hard time cutting it?
Yeah,
You cut it and you just spray it.
you can't really cut the thread. It doesn't want to cut. You have to just open your scissors a little bit and then push it through to get a straight cut.
Just push it right straight through
The nano silk is a GSP thread.
Yeah.
It is so it's not like your uni thread or the UTC.
So you just go like that.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing is, what do you use in your CDC to keep it floating?
You can use a desiccant or a dry shake or any of the others. I use a dry shake. Yeah, I use a dry shake, but the Desert Dust desiccant works really good. I usually don't use anything on my CDC flies at first until they start to sink, and then when they start to sink, then I blot them out, patch them dry, and then I put them in the dry shake, and then they're good to go. Usually, 3 or 4 fish, and they're almost toast anyway. So, I don't use any floating on them until they need it. So to demonstrate, to remove the thread, to cut it like you're asking me. So I'm just going to just start this for. Now it doesn't want to cut. I mean, these are brand new sharp scissors, and it still doesn't want to cut. So what you have to do is you keep tension on the thread, and you open up your scissors about like this, and then you push it through.
Okay. That's great thread. I just couldn't cut it.
Yeah, that's a little trick to it. You know, all GSP is the same way too. For like spinning hair flies and other things that you would want to use GSP for, you have to cut it the same way. Either that or get out a razor blade and you know, nick the side, because it doesn't want to cut at all. For this next one, do you have anybody have any more questions on that last one? No? Okay, so for my next one, I'm going to do this guy right here. This is my Wally wing parachute. And for the tails, I'm using micro fibbits on this. And then I'm using a goose biot for the body. The thorax is super fine dubbing. And then I've got a brown Dunn saddle hackle for the legs, and the wings are turkey flats. So for this one, I'm using the same thread. It's a nano silk in 18/0 in brick beige. And
Is the other fly 18/0 too?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah. 18. Let's see. There we go. Is that better? Okay. So for this fly, I've already started thread, but you had started at the eye and then kind of come down about halfway and then come back another halfway, and that'll give you 3/4, and that's position for the wing. Now for this pattern, I tie the wing in first, and to choose the wing, I'm using these turkey flats. And so I'm going to select a feather that has a relatively smaller stem and longer fibers. Like this one's a pretty good one. So, and how I do that is I strip the fluffy stuff off it first. So I've got this. Now, feather prep with this pattern is pretty important. The turkey flats are a little bit stronger than some of the other feathers that are commonly used with this style of wing. The duck flanks is what's usually used for the wings on the Wally wings, but I use turkey flats because they're a little bit stronger. But because they're a little bit stronger, they're also harder to work with. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of trying to get all these overlapped fibers flattened out first, and then I'm going to take about that much of the feather, and I'm going to bring everything back like this. I'm just going to preen everything back, but I'm going to leave this top piece on. I need it for later. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold the tip and then the back of the feather, and I'm going to take my nail, my fingernail, and kind of rake it on the underside of the feather backwards. And what I'm doing is I'm folding the fibers down and back. And I'm doing that on both sides. So I've got something like this. And then I'm going to kind of coax these back a little bit further and try to line up the fibers so I don't have any overlapping fibers. So it looks like this. Now what I'm going to do is kind of pinch up and back these feathers, and I'm going to expose a piece about that much to measure for the wing length. I want the wing length about the hook length. So from the tip right here to about right here is where I'm looking for my length. And what I'm going to do now, instead of just tying it in, I'm going to come in with my scissors once I found my length, and I'm going to cut the stem, because I don't need to tie the stem in. And I'm not tying the stem in for the reason of minimizing bulk. So I've got my wing. And now I'm going to measure, I'm going to do a pinch wrap. A couple turns to lock that in. And a couple turns up front. And then I'm going to remove the excess. And then I'm just going to come back and clean up the butt section. And now, see, I got that just a little bit long. I don't want to tie the stem in, but I want the stem to sit on the hook like this, vertical on the hook. So when I bring it back, the stem should sit on the hook, like that. Now I'm going to come through, and traditionally when you wrap a parachute post, you'll go clockwise around it because you wrap your hackle clockwise, right? Well, I found that tying these, if you post the wing clockwise, it'll spin the wing. So I'm going to counter that by going counterclockwise to post the wing, because when I tie in my hackle and I wrap my hackle, the tension on the hackle is going to spin the wing right way. Right ways out. So I'm coming counterclockwise to post that, and I'm not going to post the wing very far, maybe about an eye's width. I'm ready for my tails, and for the tails I'm going to be using micro fibbits. So I'm going to bring my thread down to the tie-in spot for the tails. I'm going to use split tails on this. So here's the micro fibbits. and this is a Dunn or dark Dunn color. I'm just going to take 3 of them. So here's the tails, and I'm going to tie them in so that they're slightly longer than the hook. I'd rather have them be a little longer than shorter. So, and again, like the Coq de Leon, I'm going to run my fingernail up the backside of the hook and lift those tails, and it splits them at the same time. So now all I have to do is come through, and I'm going to do the near side first. One turn and then a lock turn. And then I'm going to come down the far side to split the far side. And then a lock turn, and that splits the far side. And then I'm going to come around all of them to lift the center, and then a couple lock turns, and that creates the split tails. They'll never come together, and they'll never come back together. They'll be split like that permanently. I'm just going to come down and trim the butt those tail butts of the microfibbits right to the butt section of the wing. So, because I have a little bit of a bump between the butt section of the wing and the body, I'm going to put just a touch of dubbing, just a little bit of dubbing right there to help give me a taper, body taper. It's all going to be covered up with a biot anyway, so I'm just helping with that so that there's not a definite bump. And now for the body on this, I'm going to use, again with the goose biot. You could use turkey as well. And I'm going to moisten it. And then tie that in by the tip right there at the base of the tail. Now to give a little bit of security to that biot, I'm going to use a little bit of this hardest hole. And I'm just going to put a touch of that on the body. Now I'm going to wrap the biot. With overlapping turns, I don't want to expose those, I don't want those ridges to show. I want a nice, smooth, flat body. Just tying that off and then remove the excess. Now I'm ready for the hackle. And what I'm using is a brown Dunn saddle hackle. It's by Whiting. And how I'm gonna prepare that feather is that I want the feather fibers, because when they come off the stem, they're concaved, right? So I want those fibers to curve down instead of up. And how I do that is I take the feather like this, and then I stand up some of these fibers like this, and then I expose a part for the tie-in. Now these feathers are the feathers is gonna want to turn, take the path of least resistance. So to make sure that these fibers are going to be pointed down, I want the top side to be, or the shiny side to be up, with the fibers coming down. So in order to do that, I'm going to influence the way that hackle is going to turn by doing that. And that way, when I wrap, that first turn is going to have bare stem, and it's going to want to take the path of least resistance, so it's going to turn the way I want it to go. So I'm going to tie the hackle in. And then I'm going to come behind, and then I'm going to post the hackle up with the post, and I'm going clockwise this time. And then I'm going to end with my thread right up front. Now the same dubbing that I used for the help with the ramp, I'm going to use again for the thorax, and this is Semperfly Superfine. I'm just going to take a little bit of that, and you don't need a whole lot, but I'm just going to dub right here. Now I'm going to start dubbing about halfway between the post and the eye of the hook, and I'm going to dub towards the eye of the hook to give a turn, and then I'm going to start coming back. And I'm developing a reverse taper from the eye back to the post. I didn't get quite enough on there. And then I'm going to fill that little void in the back behind, and then I'm going to come back and forth, back and then forth. Okay, and then I've got my thread on the back side of the post and on the far side, and I'm just going to take one complete turn around the base of the post, the wing, and then I'm going to leave my thread at the back of the post. Now I'm ready to wrap the hackle. Now because how I oriented that hackle, that first turn is right exactly how I want it. And I'm just going to take one turn under the other, one turn under the other, one turn under the other. And let's see, I'll do one more. Okay, now to tie that off, I'm keeping tension on your feather. You don't want to lose it or release it, because it'll unravel. My thread's parked on the back side of the post on the far side from me. So what I'm going to do is bring the thread up and then come up underneath, and then I'm going to drop my feather back and then continue out one revolution. Now that hackle's tied off. Now I'm going to rotate my vise and give one more turn, And then I'm going to whip finish right around the post. And then close the loop with my bodkin. Now that knot's not super tight, so how I'm going to tighten it is I'm just going to keep tension on my thread, and then I'm just going to rotate my vise back while keeping tension on the thread. And that just tightened up the knot, the whip finish. Now, if I did it right, I should need scissors to take my my hackle off. I can just pop it off. Now, but I do need my scissors to take the thread off because the thread will actually break the hook. So once again, I'm just putting a little V in there. And then push it through. Now to set the wing, this is the moment of truth part. And this is why I didn't cut this top piece off. I got to separate this top piece. And I'm going to peel that down. And I'm going to do that on both sides. So essentially I have this so far. Now this stem, just come through with my scissors and remove the stem.
At 1 o'clock in the Adventure Theater, we have solitary angler, Wally and fly fishing without the crowd, man feature. Come and see.
And then I'm going to clip these pieces here for my wing. And now I'm just going to kind of play with this a little bit and try to even up those ridges. There it is. I'll put a drop of head cement on the thread wraps at the base of the wing post. That's my finished Wally wing parachute. Questions? All right.
You're the best there is.
You practice maybe with
Yeah, I would recommend doing that. The turkey flats are it's a rigid feather. It's a stronger feather too, and because they're stronger, it's also more difficult to work with. Traditionally, I'm not sure who came up with the Wally wing. It wasn't me, unfortunately. I can't claim that, but it was traditionally used with duck flank. So, the duck flank has longer fibers, and it's a little more supple of a material. So you can manipulate it. It's easier to work with.
that thread for most of your time?
Yeah, you know, this nano silk has revolutionized my fly tying. It has replaced almost everything I've got. I like this spider thread as well. The spider thread is very similar to Vivus. It's a 2-strand twist thread, so it's real similar to a Vivus, but it's nowhere near as strong as nano silk. And but yeah, I use the nano silk in 18 and then 12-aught as well, and then I've got it in 6-aught. I use the 6-aught for bigger flies, and then I have some 3-aught as well for hair spinning. Hair spinning, like spinning and stacking hair. All right, thanks guys. Thanks for coming.